Helldivers 2 is about to hit 1 year old. February 8th, 2024 is when this game came out and changed everything. And now that it's been almost a year, I thought it'd be fun to kind of take a look back at what's happened in the past year and where it's going in the future. There's no doubt that the game has had its ups and downs. As you can see from the charts here, it had an explosive, unexpectedly huge launch, and then some large slides, and then some stabilization. But the game has also had a ton of patches, a ton of changes, and things I bet you've forgotten about in the last year because they've just become the new norm. So let's go over some of those changes. Now, I'm not going to read every single patch note ever because there's been a lot of patches, but there are some things that I think may have been forgotten or are worth re-exploring for the 1 year anniversary. Now, if you're one of the OGs who played on launch, I bet you remember both of these patch notes that came within a week of the game coming out because the game was unplayable. There were so many login issues, there were so many access issues, there were so many disconnect issues. People literally couldn't get in the game and they wanted to get in so bad. They worked hard overnight to get us into the game ASAP, but those first few weeks were super frustrating with bugs, access issues, and so many problems. Did I mention the game crashed? Because the game crashed a lot. I know you can still experience some crashes, but there were a lot more crashes at launch. In fact, for the next few weeks, every single patch was just fixing crashes and server stability. Then in March, we got the first major patch, which added environmental hazards. Everyone's favorite fire tornadoes, meteor showers. Hey, those weren't in there from the start. Those actually came later, if you can believe it. And you can see the first round of nerfs to weapons here as well, which would become an infamous thing in the community at a later time. Also not listed on the screen here, they fixed the fire damage. Originally, fire damage was bugged and wasn't always working. Same thing with gas damage. It was kind of a crapshoot on whether or not it would actually work. In this patch, they made it so it could hurt Helldivers at least. A few weeks later, we got another big patch that changed the game forever. This was the discussion around too many heavily armored enemies, too many chargers and bile titans that were spawning, and they reduced the amount of spawns at this point. If you played in the OG days, you would know there were legit times where you would see 10 Bile Titans on the screen. You would spawn with 7, 8, 9, 10 chargers, and you felt absolutely overwhelmed. And remember, our weapons were nowhere near as effective back then, so it was definitely hard for a lot of members of the community. Also, under the gameplay point, electronic countermeasures. So there used to be this thing in the game where sometimes randomly it would give you a different stratagem, and that was how the mission modifier was supposed to work. But people didn't read the mission modifiers at all and didn't know this existed, and they thought it was a bug. And they got so many complaints and so many bug reports about it that they just ended up removing it from the game because it was so frustrating. Like, okay, I'm going to call in the resupply, and then you drop an eagle on your team. There were so many hilarious and horrible moments from it. I can see why they made this decision. Following that great patch, they did another great patch a few weeks later, and that was the fixes to the EXO-45 Patriot suit. If you remember, if you were there, you will remember that the exosuit used to be able to destroy itself by turning and firing the missile at the same time. It would literally blow itself up, or it would arrive already blowed up, or you would step on a plant wrong and it would blow up. So it was very, very buggy, and this patch finally brought some relief to those problems. They also changed the meteor shower and the volcanic activity because meteor showers used to be a lot more deadly, and there used to be so many fire tornadoes, and back then the fire tornadoes were like homing missiles. They locked onto you and they would come for you with a vengeance. Then at the end of April, we got another huge patch that made some big changes that we still see to this day. They changed the way that armor worked so that heavy armor and medium armor gave you even more protection, and armor with armor rating above 100 now also reduced damage on headshots. If you were on the bot front back in the day, you know that it was so common to be instantly taken out by a headshot by the bots. It was a huge problem that a lot of people had complaints with. The nerfing of weapons continued here. There were some small adjustments and some buffs, but overall people felt like every weapon was getting nerfed, and the other big change was the enemy patrol scandal. Players had figured out that if you were playing solo, a lot less enemies would spawn, and they were able to play the game solo in a way that they enjoyed. They found out about this, and they changed the way the spawning worked so that you wouldn't have so few enemies. The changing of the patrols and the balancing adjustments of patrol spawning sparked endless discussion around being able to solo play the game rather than what they were doing at the time. The other changes to the patrols was that we would have a bug where patrols would just instantly pop out of thin air on you, and they removed that. And they added the ability to be able to raise the flag on higher mission difficulties. There were many players who didn't know that the raise the flag mission even existed because they leveled up so quickly and jumped to higher difficulties that they literally never got to play that mission. So by adding it to other difficulties, it allowed people to play more missions, have more variety. It was a wonderful change. A few months later places us in June, where we got another huge patch where they added visible supply lines and attack origins in the Galactic War, so you didn't have to leave the game to figure out what was going on. And it was the big stratagem weapon enemy balancing update. This is where they took a whole bunch of stratagems that were underutilized and buffed them up, bringing them to the next level, allowing a lot more flexibility. At the time, I released a video saying that this didn't do enough to make them viable, and since then I have since changed my mind. A lot of these stratagems are now really awesome with these buffs and other ones they've made. Now again, I'm not going to go over everything, but I'll flash them on the screen, some of the big changes they made and some of the stratagems they made, so you can see the kind of difference that this patch really did make in the game. Skipping forward from June to August, we got the big update that gave us level 10 Super Helldivers, new enemies such as the Impalers, and the rework of the outposts that gave us much more deadly outposts. Great change, it was wonderful, we love difficulty 10, please give us difficulty 11 soon. Following up on that patch, the middle of September, we got 1.001.100, the major overhaul of anti-tank, armor penetration, health and armor values, the weapon and stratagem balancing, enemy reworks, gas gameplay mechanic rework, new galactic features, and the emote wheel feature. This was the big one. This is like in World of Warcraft where people argue over like classic WoW to retail WoW and where that ends. This is where the game went from classic Helldivers 2 to new Helldivers 2, where the weapons were reworked, where anti-tank reworked, where everything changed and the game played fundamentally different. Now this didn't happen overnight, there was a 60-day guarantee, there was a few patches in between where there were still more buffs and changes to the game, but the point was, from this turning point onwards in that 60-day commitment, the game felt way different. Your weapons were way more effective. You were slaughtering bugs and bots left and right. It was a wonderful experience. And while people still argue whether or not making the game, quote, easier was the right choice or not, it's undeniable that it is an absolute blast to this day after these changes. And then finally, we got in December the Omens of Tyranny, one of the greatest patches of all time, giving us the Illuminate, giving us the FRV, giving us new colony missions, a wonderful patch that continued to build on those changes that really brought the community back together into the game. Now that was just a brief history of some patches and things that were introduced and changed. There has been so much more that's happened over the last year that's worth talking about. There's so many memes. The community has come together with so many great things. I don't want this video to be an hour long, so I'm just going to touch on some of the cool ones, some of the big things. If I didn't include it here, put it in the comments down below. And of course, just because I don't include it here doesn't mean that I don't think it's cool or that I don't want to include it. Again, I just don't want this video to be 50 hours long. So first, we have to obviously talk about Malevolent Creek, the first battle of Malevolent Creek. You see people still talk about it to this day, and it's so hard to capture what made that battle special. You had the game just came out, a lot of people dived on bugs first because the games, for whatever reason, said, hey, dive on the bugs. That's what it did for me, is like, hey, go over here, fight the bugs. So I did that. And then you said, hey, what's this other side of the map? What are these enemies over here? And for someone who had never played Helldivers 1, I didn't know what I was going into. Enter Malevolent Creek. Space Vietnam, as they called it. We were wholly unprepared for the bots trudging through the jungle and absolutely slaughtering every Helldiver on the planet. A few pockets of the resistance tried to hold out and stayed on the planet despite the slaughter, and it was... well, you just had to be there. It was an incredible experience of everyone kind of learning the game together and going through a traumatic experience to bond. And the devs loved it so much, they gave us a cape. Speaking of capes, there were two other instances that happened in the community lore that should have given us capes, and we might still see them someday, but they're worth bringing up. And that is one, the great Sony lockout, when they required a PSN account in order to be able to play the game and locked a lot of the community out of the game, and still to this day people cannot play the game. There was a lot of discussion. I'm not going to rehash all that discussion, all the fighting, all the problems. I will say they took action and review bombed the game hard for this decision, so much so that they joked about making a cape about it, and some changes and decisions were reverted to try and allow more people to play the game. There is still an ongoing issue with that. Again, I don't want to get into all the politics of that, just bringing it up that it was an important event that happened, and we should have got a cape out of it. The next event that happened was the gas mine and children hospital incident. The community kept failing to get the gas mines, and it was clear that the devs wanted us to have the gas mines, and it became something of a meme that we just decided we're never going to get the gas mines. We're going to intentionally fail every attempt they give us to get the gas mines. And so they gave us one mission where they said, here, you can either save a hospital full of sick children that does nothing for you, or you can get the gas mines. And the community once again chose, we don't want the gas mines, let's go save the children. And as payment, you got some of the drawings you saw previously. Ironically, the only way we got the gas mines was because as a joke, they gave us an unwinnable mission, and for failing said mission, we got the gas mines because they decided that was the only way the community was ever going to accept those darn mines. This is possibly one of the best community Ren things we've had to this date. I would still like to have a cape to commemorate it. I absolutely loved the whole lore of it, the meme of it. I absolutely loved saving the children, the little drawing we got from the children. It was wonderful, and I hope when we get the Helldivers 2 movie that we get that scene in there as well. Some other quick interesting notes from the community. We had the first introduction of the TCS towers, which came back to bite us in the butt, that a lot of people felt those missions were very hard, very impossible, but we got through it. We also had turning Meridia into a black hole. Most notably, we got the jump jet that was super powered by the black goo that blew up your own teammates, and you were swarmed by just thousands and thousands of bugs. It was a wonderful time. I wish we could relive that event. I do hope someday we get something like that again. I really hope we get to see Meridia here soon, either the full invasion of the Illuminate, or something else happening with it. But those were some other cool community events. Now, of course, there's been other things that have happened to the game. We've got war bonds, we've got tons of bug fixes and other changes I haven't covered. Again, I want this to be a brief overview. So we've talked about the past. So what happens now? With the future coming, with the 1-year anniversary that's going to pop up in just a few weeks, what's going to happen to Helldivers 2 in year number 2? Now, of course, it's just speculation. They haven't announced anything yet, but I do feel like we're in for a strong year. They have really hit their stride. They know what they're doing with the game, and it has just gotten better and better and better with every patch. And a few of the devs have talked about wanting to turn Helldivers 2 into Helldivers 3, essentially that they make so many updates that the game relaunches with number 3 basically because it's such a different game. And I think we're going to see them working towards that in the next year. I think we're going to see bigger missions with either 8 or 16 Helldivers on the battlefield at once. I think we're going to see super missions will either be level 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, some new difficulties. I think we might even get a 4th faction. I know that's kind of, well, they could just be the cyborgs. No, I think we're going to get a brand new faction. I really do think that there's room on the map for one more faction, and I think we're going to see them introduce that to really say, this is Helldivers 3, this is a different game, this is new, this is improved, this is the accumulation of our efforts. And of course, we'll see some new war bonds, new guns, new toys, new stratagems all along the way. We're still waiting for our flamethrower mech and our flamethrower dog. And for certain, we will all be here diving in the future, no matter what comes. If you've made it this far, I want to give you a thank you, one, for watching my video, but also, I've been making Helldivers content for almost a year now, and I want to appreciate what the community has done to help me grow, to get to talk about this game I love, to give tips and tricks and interact with the community, and do so much with all of you. Thank you for making Helldivers 2 special, and I hope to see you in Helldivers 2 and Helldivers 3 when it inevitably upgrades to that. Again, if I missed any of the really important community stuff, please put it in the comments down below. I didn't want the video to be super long, but if I missed anything important, please bring it up. This is a community effort, so be the community and give us all the good stuff that I missed or didn't talk about, or your favorite patch, or just anything like that. Again, I super appreciate you all watching my videos and helping me to grow and be a part of the community. Thank you and have a blessed day.